Beverly Hills Cops 4. Should this movie be in theaters or is it better off streaming? Let's talk about it. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just My Opinion for my Beverly Hills Cop Axel F movie review. And if this is your first time finding me and you happen to like the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. All right, guys, we are now in the 4th chapter of this franchise 30 years later with Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. This is something that I was looking forward to when the trailer first dropped. It did pique my interest. Of course, I checked it out and I said, hey, we got Eddie Murphy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt flying around in a helicopter about to crash. This may be just a desperate attempt to make money. Of course, I'm a fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and man, I'm a big, huge, lifelong fan of Eddie Murphy. So I was gonna give it a watch at the very least. My expectations were low, but I really did want it to be good at the same time. Now, this is being directed by Mr. Mark Malloy. This is what the gentleman looks like right here. And if we scroll down and look at his filmography, this is his first full-length feature. So shout out to him. Everybody has to start from somewhere, and this is his start. We're gonna see if he did a great job or not. And let me know in the comment section what you think too, of course. But then again, as far as the director is concerned, it really didn't matter if it was someone different. I mean, the last film came out in 1994. That's 30 years ago. That's crazy. And 40 years from the first film. And every movie in this franchise has had a different director. Shout out, rest in peace to Tony Scott, who directed part 2. He did pass away 12 years ago in 2012. But 30 years. Should the studio have made a sequel or should they have let this franchise die? Is it really worth their time? Why not? We got Top Gun with Tom Cruise and they came out decades ago before we got another sequel. And I'm not saying that this is supposed to be as good as that, but I'm just saying, hey, if you thought this was a waste of time, not necessarily. It could be great, could be fantastic, or it could just be garbage, but we're definitely going to talk about it. And like I said, I was looking forward to this. But guys, before I get into all the nitty gritty, before I talk about all my likes and dislikes, let me tell you exactly what this 4th film in the franchise is all about. Axel Foley returns to Beverly Hills after his daughter's life is threatened, including old pals John Taggart and Billy Rosewood working to uncover a conspiracy. All right, guys, the first thing that I liked about this film, I actually loved about this film because it occurred throughout the whole duration of this movie, is the soundtrack, is the score, that nostalgic beat. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. But they played that in this movie over and over and over and over again. Seriously, I'm not exaggerating, at least 20 times. And I was not sick of it. I loved every time it popped up in this movie because it's just a great ass beat. It's a great ass melody. I really did enjoy it. And every time they played it, it was with a different tone. Like I said, a different melody and a different group of instruments. And every time they played it, it hit and was just as great as the last time before. I loved it. Sometimes it was high pitched, sometimes it was low, sometimes it was in the middle, and I couldn't get enough of it. Next thing I loved about this film is Eddie Murphy, Axel Foley, the titular character in the film. I pretty much like all Eddie Murphy movies. If I go down this filmography, I can probably pick out a handful that I did not like, but off the top of my head, he is just one of the best entertainers in Hollywood, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that this is his best film to date, this film right here. No, it's not even remotely close. But I did enjoy Eddie Murphy, and I did enjoy his character, Axel Foley. He is back. I love the fact that his character is so confident and can just burst into a room, into a scene with henchmen, just with their finger on the trigger, ready to shoot anybody at the drop of a dime in an instant. And he can always just be so cool, calm, and collective with his demeanor, with his delivery of his lines and his breath and his mannerisms, demanding the room. And if you've seen the previous films, you know that he's always putting the banana in the tailpipe. I cannot remember if that was part 1 or part 2. One of my favorite lines, banana in a tailpipe. Not saying that that exactly happened in this film, but he is a trickster. He freestyles. He has great improvisation. Eddie Murphy does that throughout his whole life in general, but his character Axel Foley does that throughout this movie, and I loved it. That was just another highlight for me and why I did enjoy myself. You know, doing some of the press junkets and roundtables of this film, he talked about how he did the earlier films in his 20s, and of course, he's not 20 anymore. He's much older, and the old Beverly Hills Cops films was known for a number of things, but mainly, or not mainly, but part of it is the action. There is not that much action in this film. I can only think of two scenes, the middle of the film and towards the end. There always has to be an action scene at the end of the movie, but there was not that much in this film, but that did not dilute the film at all. What made it great, like I said, was Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy, and the way that he interacted with all the characters. He used those strengths to his advantages and did not let his lack of physicality hold this film back and let it be watered down. Now, while the movie wasn't hysterical, I did laugh here and there with just seeing Axel Foley being himself, and also just his interactions with people around him, whether that was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a new character in this film, a new detective, his daughter by the name of Jane, who is played by Taylor Page. She was in Zola and also Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I knew I remembered her from somewhere. I didn't remember her because I didn't see Zola, but I did see Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And I liked her character to an extent. She did get on my nerves a bit, had a ton of eye-rolling moments where I'm like, girl, you tripping. Like, let's stop being so emotional right now. But at the same time, they wrote her character in a way that makes sense. And so the dynamic between her and Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy, did work. It was very, very realistic. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that see this film will be able to resonate with her on some degree. But for the most part, I did like her. She was a strong character. She had her head on straight. She was driven. She was determined. You know, she was just a woman that you would root for. And I liked her, whether she was by herself. But again, even better when she was sharing the screen with Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy. Now, like I said, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in this film too. He is a new character by the name of Detective Bobby Abbott, and he was cool. I liked him. Didn't just blow me away, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt never does. He's always just a great supporting actor, and I'm sure I can go down this filmography and list a film or two to where he was a standout, but his inclusion in this was quite nice. I liked his dialogue with Eddie Murphy as well, kind of addressing his character in the past and letting him know that things are just not the same and they're not going to work anymore. I kind of do like the fact that the film is self-aware as far as that's concerned. And of course, we got to talk about John Taggart and Billy Rosewood. They were some of the main characters and those supporting characters in the first 2 or 3 films. They are back. One of the roles is quite brief, but it still was significant because I was concerned with their well-being throughout this whole movie. And so it did feel like it had a bit of stakes right there. Some of them did come across a bit goofy, but that is not a knock. I just really did enjoy them on screen together again because I haven't seen them in 30 years, not even in other films, not saying that they haven't been there, but the relationship was not lost between Billy, John, and Axel Foley. It felt like they were really friends and they did not miss a beat when they met up after all these years. There was no awkwardness. There was no tension. It was like, man, it's been a long time since I've seen you. I missed you and it's good to see you again. And I ate all that up. I was smiling, seriously, every time they interacted and also at the very end of the film as well. Kevin Bacon is in this film too. He does a fine job. Nothing too spectacular. And yeah, I thought he was a decent addition to this movie too. As far as the action is concerned, like I said, there are 2 scenes. The one in the middle did feel like there was stakes. I did feel like our heroes were actually in danger. And I was like, okay, how are they gonna get out of this? Somebody did, of course, possibly come save the day. And so that was all fine and dandy right there. It was really engaging and heart pumping. And I'll save the last of the good for the end, so it'll be a nice little cherry on top. But now, guys, let me move on to some things that really did not work for me. The first is the villain of this film. As soon as they showed themselves on screen, it was so blatantly obvious that this person was the antagonist. I was like, my goodness gracious, could y'all not have telegraphed this anymore? I mean, it was obvious as the sun coming up the next day. Now, to give the film credit, again, they were self-aware about this because one character did address this in their dialogue. Like, okay, how is this not obvious to you? So in a way that was kind of breaking the fourth wall. So I do like the fact that the film was self-aware there. Another thing that I really didn't care for, well, I did enjoy the first action scene. The last one in the movie was atrocious. I don't know what they was thinking, but this was the most unrealistic gunfight I've ever seen. Well, maybe not ever seen, but it just really wasn't convincing at all. They didn't really think it through. There was so much plot armor above all the characters, the good guys, like you just know that they're not gonna die. And I'm not saying that they should have. I mean, this is not Rambo or Terminator or anything like that. It's an action adventure comedy. But at the same time, you could have ironed out those wrinkles a little bit more. It was like every character had 10 angels around them protecting them from a barrage of bullets, and they were just immune to anything, or like they jumped into Super Mario World and touched the whole star and they was invincible for like 30 to 60 to 90 seconds. It was just crazy. They should have all died at least 10 times each, but they didn't because I guess that's just against the rules and the good guys have to win, but that could have been a bit more realistic. And I'm not saying that everybody survived in this film. There are some people that died, but there was just one sequence where I was like, this is completely unrealistic and they could have did a better job. Also, something I really didn't care for is the plot is pretty predictable. And it was a bit forced at the very beginning too. If you know the story, Axel Foley is a cop, a policeman in the city of Detroit, but he had a reason to come to Beverly Hills, and he's always causing some mess that's pissing off the authorities there. In this film, he did have a great reason for coming to Beverly Hills. It made perfect sense. Great job from the writing team as far as that's concerned. However, the plot device that they used to get on the Beverly Hills Police Department's bad radar was a bit forced. It was a bit goofy. And I was saying to myself, again, y'all could have did a better job of ironing all these wrinkles out. And the last thing I really didn't care for, guys, is the plot of this film. The overall story just didn't really make any sense when it comes down to it. I was just saying to myself, antagonist, how in the world did you expect to escape with this cockamamie plan of yours? You didn't think this through at all. There's no logic. It's nonsensical. There's no way you thought that you could have got away with this. This is just dumb. So I really didn't like that. But even after I said all those negatives, guys, I still enjoyed the movie. I really did. I had a good time with this, and all those negatives, I just really didn't care. I don't know if I would have felt that way if I took a trip to the theater and had to pay for it in that sense. But to watch this at home at Netflix, I think it's completely worth it. It was really Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy, his humor, his dialogue, his cadence, all of that, and him interacting with all the other characters that he cares about in this movie is what sold it for me, and I really did enjoy it. When I said earlier that I was smiling when the credits hit, I really was, and I think you will too, especially if you do keep your expectations low. I will go ahead and give my rating for this at the very end, guys, but for now, that is just my opinion, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment, share the video, all that good stuff. But if I had to rate Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley or Beverly Hills Cop 4 out of a 1 out of 10, I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. Yes, a solid 7 out of 10. But guys, again, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that my name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.